Ms. Henderson, would you mind doing the roll call, please?
Chair Randall.
Here.
Vice Chair Snyder.
Here.
Chairman McKay.
Here.
Chair Jefferson. Here. Board Member Cunningham. Here. Mayor David Younger.
Present.
Mayor Mensing. Here. Mayor Reed.
Here.
Senator Boysko.
She's on her way.
Delegate Delaney. Here. Delegate Sewell. Here. Mr. Gribbin.
Here.
Mayor Colbert. Here. Ms. Robinson. Here. Mayor Gaskins.
You're in the kitchen, I can see.
I wanted to be noted that Miss Mary Davis Young was the only one who's present. Everybody else here.
You have a forum.
Thank you very much. We're gonna go into the presentations we have. We have two presentations, the strategy plan update and the project's status update, ensuring project delivery, which has been something we've been talking about for a long time. So we're gonna go on and do those two first. Okay.
While we get the presentation pulled up, I'll introduce myself. Good evening, Chair Randall and members of MBTA. I'm Amanda Sink and I'm the Project Delivery and Grants Manager. And I also have the fun, exciting task to update MBTA's strategic plan. And you might have remembered me. I was the executive assistant for a little while and then I transitioned into the Project Delivery Grants Manager role, but I'll get into that into my next presentation. Right now, we're focused on strategic plan update. So once we get it full screened. Perfect. So a little bit of the outline of what I'll be going through tonight is giving a little bit of the background of where we were with our first strategic plan for some of the members who have joined us recently. I'll give an outline of where we're going to go with our next strategic plan, and then I'm going to present our draft vision, mission, goals, and core values within the strategic plan. And I'm going to discuss the timeline that we're going to take to adopt the strategic plan, and then we'll have a discussion on it. So MBTA adopted its first strategic plan on November 9th in 2017. And this basically outlined what the authority wanted to be when it grew up. We identified a vision statement, which is long, it's in there, it's in your packet, you can see it, and also 4 strategic goals, which were regional prosperity, mobility, innovation, and funding. Throughout the years, MBTA provided updates on the strategic plan in 2018, 2019, and 2020. And as some of you might remember, last year in September, I presented the closeout plan, basically highlighting where we were in 2017, where we are now, kind of closing out that strategic plan and setting the groundwork for the future work we're going to do on the strategic plan. So the outline that we're going to take for this strategic plan is building off of and maintaining and enhancing our primary responsibilities while addressing other urgent and unmet regional transportation needs. We're going to outline what MBTA can do in the next 5 years, out until 2030. The structure we're going to take is this beautiful pyramid right here. We have the top. We're going to take our vision, mission, and core values, our guiding star for what MBTA is. Then we're going to identify strategic goals that we want to achieve within those 5 years. Underneath those goals, we're going to have the strategies that we have to accomplish those goals. And then we have the metrics that, because we want to continue to measure the progress that we're going to have towards accomplishing these strategies and goals. So going into our draft MBTA vision statement. Now this might look familiar to you because this is the transaction vision statement. A lot of work went into developing this vision statement when we were working on transaction. We had work sessions and met with a lot of committees and RJAC and created this vision statement for a transaction. And we do feel at MBTA that this does a good job of identifying what a vision statement is, which is defining the organization's aspirational long-term goal. So what we're looking to do in the strategic plan is kind of affirm that this is MBTA's vision statement. We really have been utilizing this in communications, that this is MBTA's vision. So we're going to just formally adopt it within the strategic plan, that this is our vision for MBTA. Then we go into a mission statement. A mission statement defines the organization's purpose and kind of outlines what it does to achieve its vision. We kind of think about this as using in the sense of kind of a concise about us statement. It can be utilized in communications efforts. A lot of other organizations have a mission statement. And what we're defining here is that our mission is to plan, fund, advance multimodal transportation solutions that reduce congestion in Northern Virginia. And this is kind of building on the vision statement, which is why I kind of have the vision statement still up there. And then lastly, we have our core values. Again, these should look familiar. We identified these within transaction. And again, we still think they're very good core values for NVTA. Core values define basically how we want to achieve it. We want to be equitable. We want to be safe. We want to be sustainable. We use this a lot in our communications that these are NVTA core values. Again, we're just looking to formalize them that they are officially NVTA's core values within the strategic plan. And then we get into our draft strategic plan goals. This is the meat and potatoes of a strategic plan. Keeping with the theme of keeping with 4 goals like we did in 2017, we have 4 goals that we identified here. The first one is we want to lead the region's transportation initiatives. We really want to affirm that NVTA is the regional leader to develop and advance multimodal transportation solutions. Things like the PDP-BRT, the preliminary deployment plan for the bus rapid transit system in Northern Virginia, those initiatives that NVTA is undertaking would fall underneath this goal. The second one is maximize public benefit through project selection and delivery, which you're going to get in the presentation after this on project delivery, what you've given us a focus on. We really want to focus on project delivery. So within the strategic plan, we're identifying a goal for that. We're going to continue that NVTA is a steward of the public's trust through continued transparent project selection through our 6-year program process. And as well as we're going to increase our accountability and coordination with project sponsors to really meet that timely project delivery. Third, we have enhanced regional planning through technical assistance and data-driven information. NVTA has developed in-house capabilities throughout the years for doing in-house modeling services and building out our data analytics team. And we want to identify this goal because we want to continue that work and enhance it so we can provide the regional insights specifically for Northern Virginia to support that informed decision-making with that data analytics. And then lastly, because most of you came out of the finance committee, we are a funding entity, we receive revenues. We would be remiss not to have a goal that identifies that NVTA should safeguard and diversify its revenue sources. So moving into the timeline of what we're going to take for this 5-year strategic plan, and just for your awareness, in March, I briefed this exact same presentation to the TAC and the PCAC for feedback and input. And I also briefed the overall draft vision, mission, goals, and core values to the RJAC in March as well. So they have all been briefed to get that feedback and input. And they were all in agreement kind of where we were going with this. So right now we're in April, where this is not an action item. This is for something for you to review because this is a big step on where we want to take with the next 5 years in our strategic plan. So what we plan to do is bring this back after getting your feedback, looking to adopt the vision and goals in May. So that's the top part of the pyramid. It's going to set the stage of what we want to do. Once we adopt that, then we're going to work on the strategies and metrics. We'll do that throughout the summer and continue to give you updates on where we're going with that. And then lastly, we're looking to finally fully adopt the plan in fall of 2025. And then I have one last slide here, just kind of wrapping up everything that I talked about. I wanted it all on one slide so you can kind of have discussion about it because it really does play off of everything. We have our vision that's making our North Star of where NVTA wants to go. Our mission is what we do. Our core values are how we do it. And then the 4 draft goals that we have that we want to identify to achieve within the next 5 years. And with that, I'll open up for discussion and take questions.
Amanda, that was absolutely phenomenal. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I will take questions. Delegate Chair Jefferson.
I don't know if that's a promotion or demotion, but anyway. I just want to look at the draft mission, and I don't know if it's fair to him, because obviously congestion is a huge concern. But when you have safety as one of the core values, would it be fair to say our mission is to plan, fund, and advance multimodal transportation solutions that reduce congestion and improve safety in Northern Virginia? Is that improving safety? Would that take us too far from where we want to go? Because I don't know how much we consider that in some of our projects, but I mean, we do focus a lot in Northern Virginia about improving congestion, but we also, reducing congestion, but we have to also talk about safety because maybe there are projects that improve safety among certain corridors.
Yes. So,
No, thanks for that question, Chair Jefferson. So safety is actually one of our performance measures that we look at when we're analyzing our projects. Now, and we've gone back and forth with your technical advisory committee on this. When we make these investments in these projects, some believe, a lot believe that safety is an inherent part of the investments that we make, even if we're not specifically calling it out. However, on the flip side, because there's a strong belief that we should specifically have safety as a performance measure, even though we know that the projects have safety inherently built in, but this is why we had safety as a core value in addition to the performance measure. So we can say safety is a core value for the organization, and it's a performance measure where we are utilizing, and it's a separate performance measure from some of the congestion reduction performance measures to further put the emphasis on the importance of safety. Did that answer your question?
A lot of work.
It is a lot of work.
I just, from my standpoint, just having in there, sometimes you have to be explicit. So that's why I called it out. Sometimes just, again, being explicit lets people know that it's not just reducing congestion, that safety really is, and it is something that is looked for.
My only thought, and this is something I'd like, you know, we have a long agenda, so we may not have a lot of time to discuss tonight, but I'm just, my one thought is this. Nowhere in any of this first of all, no joke, Amanda, this is amazing. This is great work. So thank you. Thank you so much. But nowhere in anything do I see the word or any hint the fact that we do capital projects. The reason that's is it there? Did I
So
miss
in
it?
the definition on goal number 4, because we have the, the title of the goal,
Yeah.
and then I wanted to provide further information of kind of what the goal is getting at. It says that MBTA protects and expands its revenue to bolster the region's capital funding needs.
Okay.
So that's where we wanted to kind of call that out.
I only say that because we have had so many hints and suggestions and maybe we do operations and listen, MBTA was not made to do operations. That's not what 2013 said we should be doing was operations. The amount of more staff you would need if we were doing operations, that's just not what we're doing. So I love the mission statement as it stands. I don't know. Let me just think on this a little bit, because I would like to see capital. I would like that clarity, so no one will think that, well, just maybe, because it's been suggested a couple of times by a couple of people that maybe we want to take on operations, and we do not.
Mhm.
So let me just think on that verbiage, but it would be, that's a small thing. I mean, this is really good job. Anybody else? Yes, oh, I have the mic.
I'd like to follow up with Chair Jefferson's comment. Somehow the draft mission statement doesn't quite capture what we say our core values are. And one suggestion would be to reduce congestion and advance the core values of equity, safety, and sustainability. It recognizes congestion is key to our legislation, but also pulls in, I think, our core values. That's just one way to do it anyway.
What if we just said to reduce congestion and recognize our core values, but then we don't list them because we're going to list them again anyway when we get to core values. So if we just said core values.
And we can come back to you next month with that draft verbiage.
It sounds like we'll make tweaks to the mission statement to incorporate all of those
Yeah.
things and kind of wordsmith it to be concise.
That one.
Thank you, Chair Randall. I also echo, this is really exciting and great work. I guess my question, since this is the first time I'll be going through this, I'm just wondering, as part of the timeline, is there any period where the public weighs in on the strategies or a public comment period?
So we didn't do a public comment period with our 2017 strategic plan, and I'm not looking necessarily to do it in this year. And part of that is because a lot of what MBTA does when we're executing things, we have those public comments with transaction, the 6-year program, PDP-BRT, all of those things are coming up. A lot of times with the strategic plan, how we view it is that this is also kind of for our customers in the sense of like project sponsors leading the region, the different agencies, and that's who we're kind of coordinating with through the RJAC. The TAC is representation, of the industry professionals and the PCAC, all the jurisdictions as well. So we're kind of getting the input from our customers as well. And
Mayor Gaskin, I would add that all of this really comes from our enabling legislation that details what we're supposed to do.
Thank you.
All right, well, thank you. And let's go on to the next presentation, the project status update.
So I'm going to be presenting this one as well, along with my colleague, Regional Transportation Planner, Kristen Sarek, who I've been working closely with to get this information to you.
I'm sorry, Amanda. What I would like to state before Kristen and Amanda take over in the presentation, and I'll just give one bullet point. Last April, I believe it was last April, when we were talking about the fiscal year 2025 budget, you directed us to really put emphasis on project delivery. And I think what you'll see tonight is some of the benefits of the work we've tried to put in to project delivery. One thing I will note in the interest of time, even though we have some gains, we can always be better and do better to making sure that these projects come to fruition in a timely manner. Given what's going on with the federal government, and I think it's no secret, we are not doing well in smart scale as a region. And I will add DMV moves. And as Chair Randall noted, we don't want to be the entity that's looked upon to fund everything, because number one, legally, we cannot fund certain things like operations and maintenance. Number two, we weren't created to supplant. We were created to supplement other funding sources. And I think as things are shaping now, we have become the funding entity where additional funds have been supplemental to the work we're doing. So we're trying to make sure we get a balance and balance that out better. And of course, we would prefer, or I'll say prefer, you guys have said it loud and clear, we don't want the law change to take the monies to move to operations and maintenance. Thank you.
Okay, with that. Okay. So with the focus, as Ms. Backman presented, on project delivery, what we're doing is giving this presentation on the analysis that we've done so far in project delivery, the advances we made, and then the work that we still have to continue to do. As this data is constantly evolving, which you can get real-time updates at novagateway.org on our projects, and purposes of this presentation, it is a snapshot as of March 25th, 2025, in order to get this presentation going. And the objectives of our analysis and project delivery, which we do monthly and quarterly, is to monitor progress against policies and milestones, transparently present project sponsor information, and we're using that data to continue our analysis and really support and advance these projects and what MBTA could do and its capacity. So as Ms. Backman noted, we've really focused on project delivery last year with the budget in April of 2024. And some of you might remember you saw a slide like this, and Mr. Long, he really briefed this, and what we have done is recreated it for the snapshot as of March 25th, 2025. And this shows MBTA's $3.8 billion investment towards 139 projects. So what you're seeing here is that we have the solid blue line is the expected reimbursement based on what project sponsors have told us that we were going to spend. And then the dotted blue line is the expected reimbursement for the project sponsors into the future. Then on the solid gray line, we have all of the actual reimbursement that we have done up until this point. And then the dotted gray line is the trend line. So if we continue the trend that we're on, that's what we're going to look at. What we said last year and what our focus is really on project delivery is that gap in between the expected reimbursement and the actual reimbursement amount. That's what we're going to get into in this presentation, and we're going to come back to this slide. So before we go into a little bit more, I wanted to lay some groundwork on the nomenclature that I'm going to be using, as well as the life cycle of MBTA's standard project agreement, or the SPOC. So to begin with, we, approve a call for projects, or, this body approves a call for projects. What you're going to do on the agenda tonight, that allows project sponsors to submit an application. And then when you adopt our funding program, we adopt funding towards that application. And that's the start of a SPA, because everything that's within that application goes into that SPA and that project. After that application is approved, then we appropriate. When project sponsors are ready to spend their money, this is through the budget process. Again, it's on your agenda tonight. You'll see all the fiscal year 26 appropriations that were made. Then we appropriate, you approve that, and we appropriate the money to the project. Once the appropriation is approved, then NVTA and the project sponsors start working to execute a SPA. There are 2 SPAs on your agenda tonight. So you kind of see the cycle of the life cycle on your agenda. We approve the SPA, and this is the contract. It outlines what NVTA is going to do, what the project sponsors are going to do. And it also has some appendices in there. You might hear referred to Appendix AB, it's nomenclature, but it outlines the schedule that the project is going to spend money, and more importantly, what they're going to spend NVTA's money, REG. So that's what we're using when we're looking at that big funding gap. After the SPA is executed, they're submitting reimbursement requests. Once they've used all of NVTA money, depleted it, then we look at closing out the SPA, and that is basically categorized in 2 categories. We have the SPA closed out and the project is ongoing, or the SPA is closed out and the project is complete. The ongoing usually occurs when NVTA funds just design or right of way. So the SPA is closed out, but the project is continuing. And typically we see a project completion as well as with a SPA closeout is when we fund all the way to construction. So when they're done with the SPA, then usually the project is also complete. Specific thing to note on project completion is that NVTA's interest in a project does not stop once the project is complete. We want to make sure that we're getting our economic useful life out of the investment we made. And this is an area that NVTA hasn't really expanded into yet with the resources we have. So with a little bit more resources, we can develop really analyzing and continue to go further with the project delivery of seeing where these projects are meeting its useful life, giving the benefits to the public once even the project is closed out. So once we have some nomenclature here, we have the breakdown of the categories of the SPAs. So as I noted, we have 139 unique projects, but those are represented through 185 SPAs. So as project sponsors submit applications, a lot of times that's applications for different phases of funding throughout the project. A project might have multiple SPAs within it. So that's why we have more SPAs than we have projects. I also want to note here for nomenclature purpose and discussion purpose, while technically, as I noted, a SPA is not executed or doesn't become a SPA until you all take action and we sign off on it. Just for discussion purposes, we kind of use SPA as soon as that application is approved, because again, it's that start of the SPA. So going into the classifications here, we have 47 that have been approved but are not appropriated yet. We have 6 that have been appropriated but don't have a SPA yet. We currently have 60 executed SPAs. So those are the ones that are drawing down our money, submitting reimbursement requests. And then we have a total of 72 that are closed out. And those are represented in the 2 categories, 17 project ongoing, 55 that the project is complete. And that is basically representing a total of 47 projects that have been fully completed and are online for the public. And then we go into the classifications for the funding programs. And as the project delivery and grants manager, this is my personal favorite graph because it really starts getting into project delivery. What we're looking at here is the classifications in essence of time with our funding programs. On the left-hand side, we have fiscal year 2014. That was our first funding program. Those are the ones we approved. We would want to and expect to see that those SPAs are closed out, the projects are coming online. And then conversely, in the fiscal year 2024 through 2029, that a big note in the 6-year program, you adopt out year funding. So for that fiscal year 24 through 29, that's approving funding for fiscal years 28 and 29. We are not in fiscal year 28 yet, so we would not expect those to be executing a SPA. They're just going to kind of sit there until fiscal year 28. But where we get into project delivery specifically is the fiscal years 2018 to 2023 and fiscal years 20 through 2025, because we're currently wrapping up fiscal year 2025. And what you'll note there for that funding program is that we have 7 SPAs to be that have not asked for appropriation yet. So they're not going to spend NVTA's money anytime soon. There's 3 that have been appropriated, but don't have a SPA yet. And again, for fiscal year 2018 to 2023, we have approved that funding year, and we still have 3 that have been appropriated but haven't executed a SPA yet. So we're going to get a little bit more into that later in the presentation. And then on this slide, we have our approved amounts versus our reimbursed amounts. And as of March 25th, 2025, obviously MBTA has funded a total of $3.8 billion, but we have also reimbursed $1 billion. We finally crossed that threshold in about mid-March. You might remember some of you celebrated our ribbon cutting on our 30% in September of 2023. And it has taken us until mid-March 2025 to reach that 1 billion threshold on our 70% funding. Looking at the chart here, the other thing I want to note that while we adopt out year funding, so for example, fiscal years 28 and 29 in our last funding program, that's when project sponsors are going to start spending their money. They're not going to complete MBTA spending of money and deplete it until out years of fiscal year 2032. That's why when you see our big funding graph, it goes out that far because that's how long it's going to take for project sponsors to draw down our money. Which is why on this graph, we don't necessarily expect to see in some of our funding programs that blue bar meet that green bar at this point in time. But it still is an insight into project delivery because we would expect to see that blue bar just be a little bit higher on some of those funding programs that I noted earlier with the fiscal year 2018 to 23 and 2020 to 2025. Last thing I'll note on these 3 slides is that we provide them monthly to you in the CEO report in the project status section. So you can see how these change, month over month and kind of see how we move the needle into project delivery. Going back into this graph here, said you're going to see it a couple times, but now we have a red box over where we want to focus because this is where we need to do with project delivery. As I noted, you're going to approve a call for projects, which means next year, we're going to adopt another funding program. We're going to add more money, more projects, more SPAs to this. So this is a problem that is going to continue with the trend lines as we want to address it. Just to note some changes from what you saw last year in April, that variance between the expected and actual reimbursement amount was about $1.08 billion. Right now, what you're looking at is about $1.19 billion. So that's about an increase of $111 million. Now, while that's still an increase, I'd like to note that with project delivery, I think that would have been much larger had we not had a focus and started to really kind of coordinate with project sponsors on this to try to get it a little bit less. And I'm going to go into that a little bit more on this next slide. This is where we focused on trying to understand what is making up this gap. Where are the problems? So we can start there. And the top portion, that green bar, is representative of 13 applications that makes up about $327 million. So these are things that when they project sponsors applied with the application, they said that they would be spending this amount of money by March of 2025. And they haven't even executed a SPA yet. So we're not expecting that money to move. Now, some of those have been appropriated where they could, execute a SPA, but there's quite a handful that have not even been appropriated yet. Then the next section, that gold bar that makes up the majority of it, is about $815 million, and that's from our 60 executed SPAs. As I noted, part of the SPA, the project sponsor let us know what they're going to spend the money on. So per what they said that they would spend about that much more during this time. When we looked into the breakdown of what that made up between the jurisdictions, across the board, counties, cities, towns, and agencies all on average are reimbursing about a 35% based off of what they said. Now, this is what project delivery, what Kristen and I are really, really trying to focus on. We're meeting with project sponsors. We're trying to understand because each project has a story. Each project has a unique case. So it takes time for us to schedule meetings with them, talk with them, analyze the data, follow up, get back with them and see what we can do together collectively because we want to be advancing these projects. We all want the same goal. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kristen to go over a little bit more in detail of the other analysis that we have done.
Amanda. So our analysis shows that the first signs of project delay will often show up in the form of noncompliance with policy 29 milestones, which as you guys know, is the mechanism that the authority has to monitor projects. So we specifically monitored 3 things as shown in this slide. The first is SPAs that are not signed within 3 meetings of funding appropriation. 6 SPAs are currently in this category. However, 2 will be resolved tonight after authority action, leaving 4 SPAs outstanding. This number is roughly the same as last year, as MBTA staff has been working closely with project sponsors to further understand the reasoning behind those delays. We also track monthly communication from our project sponsors. We expect a status update every single month for all projects that have been appropriated up until the time that that project is fully complete. So we currently do not have any projects within this category, which is great because we had 11 in March of 2024. And this is because communication between MBTA staff and project sponsors has significantly improved over the past year, particularly within the past 4 months. We also track whether a SPA is utilizing a substantial portion of appropriated funds within the first year and a half of executing a SPA. So 9 SPAs are currently in this category, and this is an increase in 7 SPAs from last year. This is an area where we see room for growth, and we plan to dedicate more resources to better understanding the causes of these delays. Moving forward, we're planning to shift from a reactive to a proactive approach. So with more capacity on our end, we could have the ability to identify and address potential issues before they become these larger delays. We're also focusing on gathering additional data in key areas such as application schedules, reimbursement timelines, and projects or SPAs that appear ready to be closed out. These efforts will allow us to pinpoint bottlenecks earlier and reduce overall project delay. The CFO is also starting to have conversations with project sponsors, RJAC, and the Finance Committee about updates to Policy 29. So each quarter and year, MBTA expects to see growth in the number of SPAs underway and successfully closed out, along with increases in both expected and actual reimbursement amounts. Looking at the charts, it's clear to see that these trends have held true over the past year, and the key takeaway is that the percentage increase in the actual reimbursements from last year to this year has been the largest. So that's the green bar chart on the right. So as Amanda noted before, while the overall variance has increased, we can see where a continuation of these trends will help to bring that variance down over time. Since March of 2024, MBTA has reimbursed $144 million, and we've also celebrated multiple groundbreakings and ribbon cuttings. The CFO will also provide additional project delivery impacts later on in the operations budget discussion. So these are the 2 groundbreakings that we've held in the past year, both of which are progressing on schedule. And then MBTA has also celebrated 7 ribbon cuttings on projects from our Regional Revenue Fund. The primary goal of our project delivery efforts is to complete ongoing projects and bring even more online. We've identified numerous areas where more progress can be made, which will help to reduce congestion and enhance the quality of life across Northern Virginia. More ribbon cuttings means more projects are opening up for public use and more people are benefiting from our regional investments. So this is really what we want to continue to see more of in the future and what we will continue to work towards making happen. Thank you for your time. We can take any questions.
Again, that was absolutely phenomenal. Thank you very much. Do we have questions? I know it is a long meeting, but this was, if you do have questions. So I have one, and it may sound kind of strange, and it may be a question for you, Ms. Bachman. Let's go back to slide 4. I'm going to ask the question and maybe answer it and see if I'm right. Okay. So when we say that we have a SPA closeout project completed and you're still going to monitor it, why? Why are we still going to
So
monitor?
Chair Randall, per code, the projects that we invest in, the projects that we fund, they are supposed to materialize and reach their useful life. In the event that a project that we have funded does not reach its useful life, then there is another discussion we have to have about reimbursing the authority that delta. This is why we have to continue to follow the projects. So let's say, and I'll give an example because the example, we won't be here, we may be here, but not here. A bridge project, the life of a bridge project is typically. I'm not saying that, I'm just saying we may be doing other things. We may be doing other things, but typically the life, the useful life of a bridge project is usually about 50 years. Now,
We were dead.
I did not mean we were dead. I mean, we may not be at this table. convened at this body, but technology has come a long way, so. But the useful life of a bridge is 50 years. That's what industry standards are. Whoever is here, if we put money, make an investment in a bridge project, that project is supposed to stay as that bridge and what we funded for 50 years. Let's say the locality says, you know what? We don't need this project as a bridge anymore. We want to make it something else. That's where the discussion with the authority comes into play, because the code says the projects are supposed to reach their useful life. And essentially it's, you can't take authority money and, hey, okay, I'm gonna do this for, a few years, but now I want to do something else with it.
Yeah, and that's code. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I should, but I didn't. Does this take a lot of resources?
Well, from the presentation tonight, and this was what you directed us from last year, the answer is yes. And every time we dive deeper into it, we're like, oh, it takes even more time. And like Amanda and Kristen said, every project has a story as to why it's delayed, I should say.
Yeah,
But behind that story is additional stories.
right. And then so we would then start a clawback effort?
We try not to claw back.
Okay.
However, the way the policy works, staff would make a recommendation to the finance committee.
Okay.
Then the finance committee would make a recommendation to the authority. But for the most part, we try not to do a clawback
sure,
because
sure.
we
Yeah,
all want the
right, yeah.
benefits from
So-
the project.
So somebody should be following that project until it's useful in. so
Like,
to speak.
yes.
I maybe I should have known that, but I didn't, so thank you. Any other questions? So Monica has killed everybody, but Delegate Sewell and Mayor Gaskins. Okay. Okay, all right, anybody else?
I have a
Yes,
question not
yes, sir.
relating to lifespan. Just going back to the chart that you showed twice. By the way, it was a fantastic presentation. It's really hard to convey this much information in a cogent, clear way that I can follow. So I'm very appreciative of that. What is the chart with the divergent lines? They were together until 2019 and then they diverged because we're obviously collecting revenue faster than we're providing reimbursements. Is there an optimal level where that gray line should be?
Much closer.
And then just generally, the projection doesn't look particularly encouraging. There are things that we should be doing as a body to try to bring those lines closer together. So we're actually taking the capital that we're raising through taxes and deploying it faster.
So those are things. That's where the project delivery focus is what we're working on, because basically how to get those lines closer is to make sure that project sponsors are submitting the reimbursements. And they're also, because the blue line, as I noted, is based off of what the project sponsor tells us that they're doing for the project schedule. So if they're keeping us in the loop with the schedule of spending on top of spending the money, then it's going to come closer. And things like that you have adopted with policies, policy 29, which is where Mr. Long, he is working on updates to policy 29, and we're having those discussions, are going to help. So that's before we adopt that policy, it's going to come back to this board for consideration, and that can kind of help, again, drive this mechanism to make sure that we're keeping on track with that.
That's really one quick follow-up question. So we put cash balances along this. I'm assuming they're growing dramatically because the blue line is somehow tied to revenue collection, or?
The blue line is tied to what project sponsors are saying how they're going to spend NVTA money.
Right.
So this is
Which I
money we've
assume-
already allocated and have approved for, and then this is how they say when they're going to spend it by. So why the number is so close in fiscal years 2014 to 2019 is because in those first funding programs that we identified, we didn't have out year funding. Project sponsors were saying, we need the money, we need it now. They were executing it now. So it was much closer on. And also we had less projects and, not so much to deal with same thing with the locality staff, because it's an effort on their staff as well. So once we started getting into the 6-year program, which started in the fiscal year 2018 timeframe, that's where you start seeing the divergence come through as we're bringing on more projects. We adopted a lot of projects when we did that first 6-year program.
Yeah, I guess it does, and it's helpful. I was asking a slightly different question.
Oh.
I'm assuming the blue line roughly correlates with revenue collection. That we're not promising in
Oh.
out years that we're gonna reimburse when we don't have revenue. to do
Correct,
that. To the
correct,
extent
yes.
we're not making those reimbursements, we'll have a growing cash balance.
Mhm. And this is
which
where,
Then creates a potential liability for others to decide how that cash balance might be utilized.
correct, which is why we want to fix this problem.
Okay.
Yes, okay, yes.
See,
I'm following now, yes.
All right, well, thank you very much. So both of those were very, very helpful. I appreciate it. Authority members, this is the first time we will have a consent agenda at the authority meeting, so maybe to move us along a little faster, so yay. The consent agenda is as follows. I do want to remind you that consent agendas have no objections and no needed presentations, and they are as follows. Item 5, approval of February 13th, 2025 meeting summary and minutes. Item 6, approval standard project agreement SPA 2020-301-1 Germantown Road, Route 29 intersection improvements for the city of Fairfax. Item 7, approval of standard project agreement SPA 2020-14-3 Rolling Road widening Hunter Village Drive to Old King Mill Road for Fairfax County. And item number 8, approval of the withdrawal of Ryan Road widening Phase 2 Evergreen Mills Road, the Beaver Dam Drive from the 2022 to 2027 6-year program for Loudoun County. That is the consent agenda. I will make a motion to approve. Is there a second?
second,
Motion seconded by Mayor Gaskins. Discussion on the consent agenda. Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
aye.
Any opposed? That motion will pass unanimously for the members who are in the room. Authority members, I'm going to make one other change to the action items today, in that I'm going to move up the approval letter of endorsement for the town of Dumfries for FY 26 federal community projects funding to after the after item number 9, the local distribution fund budget. We do have two, I'm going to call them guests in the room. Although it's hard to call someone a guest who's part of the family. So Mayor Wood from Dumfries and Council Member Young from Dumfries have joined us for item number for that item. And they may want to sit here all evening with us, or they may want to go home. So we're going to move that item up. So we're going to go to item number 9, and then we will go to the blue sheet that you have in front of you. And I will go to Chair Jefferson to make the motion. So, but let's do item number 9 first. Mr. Snyder.
So, thank you. This starts our review and hopefully approval of a number of critical items that were recommended to the authority by the Finance Committee. So as you can tell, we've been heavily engaged in the preparations for all the FY 2026 budgets. The committee also reviewed and discussed the monthly revenue, investment portfolio, and operating budget reports. While overall revenue remained positive, the committee has been focused on grantor's tax results and the underperformance of the IOEP transfer. Sales tax receipts and investment portfolio earnings are more than offsetting the headwinds being encountered by the grantors and the IOEP transfer. At tonight's committee meeting, we kicked off the annual independent external audit for this year with a meeting and discussion with Mr. Garber, partner with PV Mayors. I'm also pleased to report, remember this one. I'm also pleased to report that this week Moody's Credit Rating Services affirmed the authority's credit rating at the highest possible level for our type of organization, AA+. We should give ourselves just a round of applause. So that was great. And Fitch's Ratings undertook their own credit rating surveillance review with finance staff responding to questions with a number of reports and analyses. After their review, Fitch is also maintaining the authority's AA+ credit rating with outlook stable. And in this environment, both of those results are very, very good. And thanks again to all the incredible work of staff, and thanks to the authority for laying out a policy framework. And thanks to the legislature making all this possible. So again, big words of appreciation for everyone. Now, detailed monthly revenue, investment portfolio, and operating budget reports are in your meeting packets. Now, before we go into a more detailed discussion, when Chair Randall was handing out the committee appointments, she said to me, which committee do you want to be on? And I said, the Finance Committee I do not want to be on. She said, fine, you're chair of the. Now, however, there's a happy interim. This little guy is filmed with honey from Michael Longy's honey operations. So for those of you who had the opportunity to serve on the Finance Committee and refused to accept it, you do not have one of these in front of you.
Be very jealous.
I don't know.
Be very jealous.
Only tonight.
At least tonight, not the rest of the year.
That's a lot on my long about that. I'm not getting mine.
So moving to the serious work of the Finance Committee and this authority on financial issues. The first item is the adoption of the FY 2026 local distribution fund budget. And I'll recognize Michael Longy to present that.
Thank you, Vice Chair Snyder. It would be handy to have the chart in front of you. I am just going to highlight one area of the written staff report and then work through that small table real quick. The area I want to highlight is at the bottom of the first page of the staff report 4B, which says actual distributions to each jurisdiction will be contingent upon their timely completion of the annual certification process. That's required by law, and it's pretty much routine. No jurisdiction has failed to complete that process. We work very well together with your staff to make sure it's done, and it's done on time. The key part here also is those distributions will be determined by the actual revenues received on direct and accredited transactions, which means the 30% when the state tells us that money is getting ready to transfer monthly, we put a buy order in that separates that money between 30 and 70 before it even gets to us. So the state sends it out as one part. The local government investment pool has a buy order from us for 30 and 70. So looking at the chart, this is the easiest budget, by the way, you'll have tonight. It's probably the easiest budget in your lifetime. Our carry forward amount on the budget is 0 because we distribute all the 30% money to your jurisdictions. The counties then distribute that to towns as appropriate. The revenue is made up of the 4 revenues: sales tax, transfer, interstate operations or ILP, grantor's tax, also commonly referred to as, or I think it's actually legally referred to as a congestion reduction fee. The Commonwealth's NVTD transfer, which is a flat 20 million in total, so 6 million for 30%. Then we have 2 interest earnings. COVA interest is interest earned on the money while it's in the hands of the Commonwealth. The interest earnings, plain interest earnings, is interest earnings on the money while it is in our hands. And the reason you see a 0 for last year's budget and 220,000 for this year's budget is simply that the money is staying in our hands for some jurisdictions a little longer than it used to. Plus, we've gone from a near 0 interest rate environment to up until last week, there's 4% or 5% interest rate environment. So we just recognize that. So total money to be distributed is 140 million. That's a $12 million increase or a 9% increase from last year. Our expectation is all of that will go out the door. Therefore, there is no remaining budget balance. So this is truly your simplest budget. And with that, I'd be pleased to respond to any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions, comments? Okay, seeing none, move the authority adopt the proposed FY 2026 local distribution fund budget as presented.
Second. Call for the vote.
No.
Yeah. My God, we're like Laurel and Hardy over here. For God's sake. Okay. All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? That motion will pass unanimously. Authority members, I'm not going to call for suspension of the rules. I will say without objection, unless anyone has an objection, I am going to add to the agenda an item for a letter of endorsement for the town of Dumfries FY 26 federal community project funding application. I was called about this, or told about this by Ms. Backman. I hope all the pertinent questions, like, is it going to cost MBTA any money? And it was not. And so without objection, I'm going to add that, this to the agenda at this time and give it to Ms. Backman if you wanted to say anything else. And then I'll go to the chair of Prince William County for a motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The town of Dumfries is requesting an MBTA letter of support for a FY 26 federal community project funding application. And essentially, they're looking to underground some of the utilities as part of the Route 1 project, which we are heavily invested in the town of Dumfries to the tune of $129.7 million.
All right. Chair Jefferson, would you like to make a motion?
I would. I move authority approval of the letter of endorsement for the town of Dumfries fiscal year 26 federal community project funding or CPF application.
Mayor Davis Younger. Mayor Davis Younger has seconded that motion. Discussion on that motion. Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion will pass unanimously. Congratulations, Dumfries. Yay. Taking pictures really. Okay, turn around. Stand it. I shouldn't have started that. Seriously, pictures. And this is why he's successful. That's right. Right there. Okay, we're going to go to the next item, which is the item number 10, which is the FY 2026 regional fund budget, regional revenue fund budget.
Yeah, this is the second of the major finance committee items for your consideration, and we're presenting these, but understand that it's the authority's ultimate responsibility, even though it may come as a recommendation from the finance committee. So please, as I know you will, give this all the attention that you possibly can. So Mike, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Vice Chair. This budget likewise is handy to have the actual spreadsheet in front of you, and I'll try to work from that. The staff report is indexed actually to the far right column here to help you follow along between the staff report and the actual budget. This budget is presented somewhat differently, and it has to be because the authority does forward appropriations, and you actually have two forward appropriations to look at tonight. A forward appropriation means that a project that your staff is saying that their project can proceed at an advanced schedule. That may entail that you are committing money that isn't received. Your auditors would typically frown on that. We, several years ago, had a discussion with our auditors and said, you know, it doesn't make sense for us to be sitting on a large investment portfolio and go to the credit market to get a project to be able to move ahead of, as it is able. Oftentimes, these projects are also being accomplished in phases. So allowing a project that has one track record of being able to advance to keep advancing allows the project to save a whole lot of cost. The concern of the auditors, and there were some very interesting discussions. The concern of the auditors was, okay, this board today can do an advanced appropriation that then handcuffs a future board. And this is also typically, think of Enron. Think of some other financial disasters where an organization has gotten over its skis, so to speak. In other words, it's committed itself to things in the future or said things in the future are going to happen that end up not materializing. So we put a lot of checks and balances in this to make sure that it doesn't happen. Quite frankly, I can look at some forward appropriations and go, oh, this is a no-brainer. But we do the math anyway. So we ask for forward appropriations before having to have a deadline ahead of regular appropriations. A regular appropriation, in other words, if a project was approved in 26, it has first claim on 26 money, no matter what. So I just want to go, this is kind of a strange budget presentation for that, and I think it'll become a little clearer as I work through it. The four revenues are here. The COVA interest, we aren't doing any bonds, and we don't have future financial appropriation finance. There's no need to finance a forward appropriation. So all of those are blank. The big notable thing on the revenue is last year, the portfolio was estimated to, or this year was estimated to bring in 35 million. We're projecting 70 million for next year. I actually still think that's a very doable estimate. Our interest earnings thus far this year are about 56 million. So we've already exceeded this year's projection of 35 million. So, you know, that investment portfolio, and to go to Mr. Gribben's question, is that space between that blue line and that gray line is the now, as of March, $2 billion investment portfolio that we are managing. So that is, and this is the weirdest CFO's job ever. I want that portfolio to shrink. I want those lines through project delivery to come together. So all of my B school professors would have given me an F if they knew that, you know, in my future as a CFO, I was going to be making a statement like that. But for us, we are unique, and that is part of our uniqueness. So anyway, total revenue is estimated at 398 million. Again, this is 70%. We've worked through our expenditures, starting off with our master and supplemental indentures, our bond indentures. We got to pay our principal and interest first. So those are the next two lines. We then come down to modeling, licensing, PIMS, and technical support. There is a large jump there. Our PIMS and our NOVA dashboard has evolved from something that was put out there to help NVTA staff, but mostly help jurisdiction staff, because we are having to rework project applications because of simple math errors. So we automated it, put in checks and balances so that we don't have to read through those simple type of things. That has since grown and grown and grown and grown. It is now not, it is no longer an NVTA tool. It is a region and a public transparency tool. The NOVA dashboard is where all of this information that goes on projects, that goes into PIMS, then becomes available for the public to see. What we are looking at doing is basically the same thing we did with our own project applications. We want to add CMAQ and RSTP projects to this. Part of it is we want to automate the application process to help VDOT, help member jurisdictions, so that the applications are kind of self-correcting while staff are keying it in, as well as we can track them now and we can add them to the NOVA dashboard. We are asking for a $350,000 allotment to update PIMS for that. We are moving PIMS from the operational budget to this budget because it had, PIMS and the NOVA dashboard have become a region-wide undertaking, if you will. And we've always put those expenses in this budget, like the transaction expenses in here, et cetera. So that is like the one material change. We are also preparing to update transaction. We do that every 5 years. It takes 2 years to do. So we want to start the procurement for that in fiscal 26, and therefore you see $4.5 million for the transaction update. Transaction update not only includes the update of transaction, but it includes the consulting services to support 3 funding programs, the evaluation projects, three funding programs. And it is fundamental to everything we do. The reason you don't see last year's expense on it is because the last time we did it was roughly 5 years ago. Now for the fun stuff, recommended project appropriation requests. And as Ms. Sink had said, we've got a number of requests. They are on page 2, and they start off with Loudoun County, the City of Alexandria, 1 regular appropriation for the City of Manassas, Virginia Passenger Rail Authority, Fairfax County, and then the last 2 projects on that list are forward appropriations. Prince William County has a project that is valued at $115 million. We did make sure we did the calculation on that one. That they say can move forward. The City of Manassas also has a $4 million project. So that total of those appropriations, the regular appropriations, basically for projects that you had agreed to fund in 26, plus those 2 forward appropriations total $173 million. Our next line is net revenue restricted for the 2020 to 27 6-year program commitments. That's basically, this is funds that you have agreed to for those future years, but they haven't come through with an appropriation yet. And this is part of our calculus to make the auditors happy. Then we go to transfers and carryouts or carryovers. The transfer out of 5.6 million is the operating budget. Previously, when we first started, the operating budget was paid by the jurisdictions on a population basis. The legislation was broadened to allow it to come out of the regional revenue fund, so it doesn't have to come out of, most jurisdictions chose to pay for it out of the 30%. That number will automatically change to what is agreed to on the operating budget. The next number down is update forward appropriations. This amount is basically money available. You can look at it as kind of a remaining capacity for forward appropriations of 55 million. It is typically positive revenue variances, projects that close out without using all their funds, or a project that withdraws, completely withdraws. That this does not include the Route 28 project, because while we see that withdrawal coming, there has been no formal action by this board yet. But it will change with that. The next category, cumulative regional revenue reserve balances. We have a $120 million working capital reserve. When the authority was established in the 2014 legislative session, 2014 was one of the first time in decades that the state almost did not pass its budget by July 1st. And we took that very seriously. And so we established this reserve. This reserve also serves to work with some other things I'll be talking about when we talk about revenue, to basically support us for the coming storm. We went through a storm with COVID, and we used we never touched the working capital reserve. We used some other things that we do, because when we started funded operations in 2014, one of the things staff knew that we never wanted to come to you and ask you to do was say, cancel a project because we don't have the money. And so we built in a lot of mechanisms that as we go into the revenue discussion and finance, we had that revenue discussion earlier this evening, we have a whole bunch of support to deal with the coming storm. We're especially fortunate in that the authority doesn't have a police department, doesn't have public safety, doesn't have libraries, doesn't have schools. So, you know, it's a very direct, our operating budget is essentially a rounding error on the regional revenue. With that, I know it's a little complex. I think the big transparency thing is we are proposing to move PIMS and NOVA dashboard expenses into this budget. This just happens to be the year that we want to add CMAQ and RSTP to it. That's a $350,000 expense. And then we have the transaction, which is about every 5 years at 4.5 million. But most importantly, everybody, every jurisdiction, every project sponsor that requested an appropriation has an appropriation in this budget. And with that, I'd be happy to respond to any questions.
Wow, that was a lot. Do we have any questions?
I have one question as we're all in the midst of budgeting, and I think a number of us are changing our sales tax rates. Is that reflected here, or is there likely to be a higher number?
Currently, our sales tax is 9% positive to estimate, roughly $30 million positive. Our IOEP transfer which is estimated by the state, is way below. Grantor's is struggling, but overall, we are about 2.4% positive on budget, or on projections for revenues. In addition to that, we're going to close out this fiscal year with roughly double the portfolio revenue that we asked for. So I think at this point, for the next 5 months, sales tax would have to go $10 million negative in order for us not to make our number.
From $30 million positive, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so $40 million swing.
So we're pretty comfortable with it.
Yeah, I think my question is more about fiscal year 26, since a lot of us are moving our rates up, or a few of us are moving our rates up out of necessity. Just that might change the projection.
Our sales tax rate is set by the General Assembly.
Gotcha.
Which is not done
And-
yet, right?
They haven't gone.
And if I'll a little bit deeper on the revenue side, when we adopted the last 5-year revenue estimates, we knew that things in Northern Virginia had just been going positive for so long that there was going to be a contraction. And we discussed this with the Finance Committee and with the board. So we basically just put a recession in, or a contraction in, for fiscal 28. Our estimates go out to 29. Why 28? Well, it wasn't 29, and if we waited till 29 to bake it in, we wouldn't have much flexibility. So we just picked 28. So that actually has a reduction in our long-term revenue estimates that obviously we can move that contraction forward because we update our revenue estimates every 2 years in advance of funding projects. I understand county, cities, agencies update their revenue estimates annually, but when basically your big spend is this fund, when you adopt new projects, it gives us the ability to basically adjust the pay-go amount that we will be recommending a year from now.
So for the 2 forward appropriation projects, can we assume, and the elected officials can answer this question perhaps, these projects are already underway, and we believe that doing a forward appropriation can help the project timing be accelerated, but they're past the design phase. They're already underway. Is that correct?
I believe the Manassas project is, I am uncertain of the Prince William project.
Mayor David Shangon, your project's underway already? Chair Jefferson, you know if your project's underway?
But
Yes, yes. Okay, all right.
I will note, we discussed this forward appropriation with Prince William last year and agreed with the county staff that it was potentially risky to have done it in 25. So it really wasn't a surprise when they came back in 26 and said, yeah, we have definitely.
Yeah.
to go.
As long as they're already underway, the shovel's gone underground, so it's cool.
I was gonna note as per the packet, it says that our project, we've determined that the timeline can be accelerated.
Yes, yeah, yeah. No, both of them say that. Both of them say that. Okay, great, thank you. Should I make a motion?
I think I'll make a motion. With the authority adopt the proposed FY 2026 Regional Revenue Fund budget as presented.
Motion's made and seconded by Mayor Gaskins. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion will pass unanimously. The next item is item number 11, which is we continue with the finance discussions.
So thank you very much. This is where we approve hopefully the FY 2026 operating budget. I want to highlight a couple items. There's a placeholder for a 6% increase in salary. And that is a placeholder at this point, depending on how local government budgets develop. And the idea is to align to the extent we possibly can with the main part of local government budgets. So that's a placeholder at this point. There are also 3 new positions here, but when you think about these positions, they're all in the absolute core of what we do. The first one is a financial accountant proposal. I strongly recommend that because the greatest risk to this authority is in the financial area. And so we need to make sure that we've had top flight staff, but we want to maintain that top flight staff. So that's an add. Second item is a regional transportation planner. And again, transportation planning is what we're all about. And we want to do as much as we possibly can with the resources that we have. And finally, a communications professional proposal. The one that this is an interesting one because a lot of it actually is money that would otherwise have been spent on consultants and is now being brought in-house. And I know that there's always some skepticism about communications professionals, but I think that it's absolutely critical that the public understand what we're doing. They have an opportunity to input into that process. And so the communications professional is the third staff addition. I'll turn it over to Michael for any additional commentary.
Thank you. On the placeholder for the salary increases, I am very much beholden to Marcy Foster in Arlington County and her staff, who does a regional survey on salary increase. So what you're seeing at 6% in the authority's budget is a budget line. A budget line of 6% could support wildly different individual pay increases because larger jurisdictions have salary laps, they have positions that are vacant, they have people who are topped out in their grades. There's a lot of other variables there. So the information we get from Arlington is very helpful, and it basically showed for the 4 counties and the city of Alexandria, the low projection for people in terms of actual merit and cost of living increases. The low point is 4.5, the high point is 5.5. But that is based on the preliminary budget submitted by the county executive or the city managers. Those typically change. So what we do is we make a projection. We kind of try to be a little bit higher than that survey we get from Arlington, which is at a point in time as you are going through your individual budget developments. And then we go back later and see what was actually passed. NVTA employees are on a 100% performance-based pay increase. We have had employees that have reached that budget maximum. We have had employees that got a zero. None of current staff. But I mean, we do take, the merit increase for our staff, it's a complete merit increase. And again, we will come back to the finance committee and, say, not only how did the 4 counties and the city of Alexandria shape up, but we will add the other cities as well. Because we do pull our employment pool from the region too. The salaries, we look at the operating budget in this sheet is divided into 2 categories. Base budget, plus contract announcements and stuff like that. I could go through every line on the base budget. I don't think you want me to do that, especially since if you look at all the other categories, they are either at what last year's level were, or they are lower. A lot of that is because of cyclical. We have some expenses that only hit the operating budget every 2 years. We have a lot of one-time expenses that, obviously don't show up this year. We, on a regular annual basis, every one-time expense, such as the laptop for a new employee, we give that back each year. We don't pad the budget with it. We take that out the following year. So with that, I'll ask if there's any questions on the base budget, which is essentially the placeholder of the 6%.
How about we have a discussion within the motion? How's that sound?
Sounds good to me.
Motion.
Yes, I move the authority adopt the proposed FY 2026 operating budget as presented.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded by, actually, Chair Jefferson, I'm actually going to take that second. I think it's appropriate for the finance chair and the chair of the authority to make that motion in the second. So I'm going to take that second with respect. Thank you. Discussion on the motion?
Sure.
Mr. McKay.
First, excellent work on the budget, Mr. Longing, the finance team and the finance committee. And, we do have a phenomenal workforce here and, a group of individuals that serve NVTA, and consistent with what Mr. Snyder said about the jurisdictions and the percent. I get that, but the one thing that is inconsistent in here with, at least with my jurisdiction, and that doesn't mean it's necessarily right or wrong, is the addition of 3 positions. I don't doubt those positions are needed. I just doubt this is the right time for that. In my budget, we're cutting 208 positions. We're looking at the next couple of years because of what's happening in Washington, and expect significant additional reductions in future years. And that concerns me a lot right now. And so for those reasons, I'm not going to oppose those, but I am going to do something I've never had to do in 17 years in elected office, which is abstain on the vote because of the nature of the structure here at NVTA. But I am concerned about adding new positions in the fiscal environment that we're in. I'm wholly supportive of every other piece that's in the budget, and appreciate all the work that's been done, because I think we as an organization have come a long, long way. We saw it here tonight with the presentations that were given and the work that our current staff is already doing to correct some of the issues that we've had challenges with in the past, and to do an outstanding job on that. But I do have concerns with adding headcount with the fiscal realities that are circulating around, not just NVTA, not just my jurisdiction, but frankly, the whole DMV area.
So thank you, Mr. McKay. So Mr. McKay and I have talked about this quite a few times, and I understand that there is that we don't normally abstain. I don't think I don't know, in 10 years, I think I've abstained twice on my board ever and never here. So I do understand. I am going to support the full motion. And Mr. McKay was very generous because I did ask him, would he like me to split the motion? He didn't do that. And so he could have done that. So he didn't do that. So that's good. I think every jurisdiction is dealing with different issues. Some jurisdictions, we're doing, for various reasons, many of the reasons that have nothing to do with decisions that we made now, but decisions that were made many, many years ago are doing better than other jurisdictions. It's my feeling that, and I feel that this for my board as well, you have to ask what you need, and then if they needed to function at a higher rate, then you should try to accommodate that. I've actually believed that MBTA overall has worked on too much of a shoestring and hadn't really asked for what they needed in the past. Ms. Backman and I have had conversations about that. In fact, it's been something that I've talked to her about during her evaluations a little bit, that, that you keep good staff when you don't overwork your staff and when they're doing well. And so if anything, I think she asked for too narrowly and doesn't ask for more. So I'm absolutely going to support this, but I do have, Ms. McKay, I have a lot of, empathy for what some of my fellow jurisdictions are going through, and the fact that there are positions being cut. There are people who have to raise their tax rate. That's not true for us in Loudoun, but really, again, that doesn't accrue to me. That accrues to the decisions that were made before I got here. But, and it's hard not to understand that pain when we're talking about the importance of the region. So I understand what you're saying. I understand what you're doing, and I understand the discussions we have, and appreciate how gracious you've been in this whole discussion. So thank you. Anybody else want to speak on this item? Okay, Mr. Snyder made the motion. I seconded the motion. All in favor, say aye. Oppose? Abstain.
So Madam Chair, just because of our supermajority voting requirements, just as a reminder, for approval actions by the authority, we have to have 2/3 of the voting members present,
We have that.
2/3 of locality government members, so 6 of the 9 jurisdictions. And then the local government members voting in favor must represent 2/3 of the population.
42%? Is that
He's 45.
45? Well, so.
So within, so what else? Yeah, so an extension from Fairfax means the motion fails.
Yeah, I knew that, I thought it was 42, 45, 42. So I thought, what, if he was not here at all, not that I don't want you to be here. But if he was not here, is it because he's here, or if he wasn't here at all, we
Because
couldn't?
it's a little wonky because the quorum requirements are different
Right,
from the
yeah,
voting
Right,
requirements.
exactly. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah, so the quorum requirements, a simple majority of 9 of the 17, but notably, we're a member short. So we would need, so 9 of the 17 and a simple majority of 5 of the 9 local governments. But that's for quorum.
But that's for quorum, right? So, but it's 2/3. See, I thought it was, I thought it was 3/4. I didn't realize it's 2/3. Oh, well, that's unfortunate, but I am never gonna ask Mr. McKay or anybody else to to do anything they don't think they should do, or to be less than they think they should be, or to not be the appropriate person for their own jurisdiction. And so that's how it is. That's how it is. I'll take Jeff outside later on and handle that. But if Mr. McKay were not here today, could we just not take votes at all? We could not be voting at, we'd have to.
Because we wouldn't meet the
we wouldn't make
population
it, we
requirement.
part of it, but not but not that part.
I remember when now Congressman Jerry Connolly really pushed this. He wanted to make sure that Fairfax County had a large voice. Well, we just heard it.
You did? Yeah.
So,
Thought we figured it out. We thought we figured it out.
let me offer this suggestion, then we approve the FY 2026 operating budget without the
Yes, they split the vote,
additions,
yeah.
without the three additions, recognizing that we can come back and amend the budget and add those if and when that's deemed appropriate. Would that be agreeable?
It is agreeable. I will say, and this may add to the problem, or it may help, I don't know. But with the three positions, I mean, I have a problem with adding positions, as I mentioned right now, in this time that we're in. That being said, I could live with the position in attachment B, which is the financial accountant position. It's the other two that I think right now, the transportation planner and the communications piece that I have more trouble with. So instead of moving forward without all three positions, I could vote for a budget that contained attachment B, which is the financial accountant proposal at this time. I
So
don't know
one
if
of the
that's
three you're
helpful
saying.
or harmful, but I would
Well, I think
offer that. I
everyone
could
is
accept that.
yeah. So then the motion would be the authority to adopt the adoption of the proposed FY 26 operating budget as presented, with the exception of the two positions of the regional transportation planner and the
Communications.
Communications 157, 356. The planner is 155, 487. So that would be the motion.
Right. So I'd like to withdraw my prior motion.
It failed already.
Okay.
Oh, make a motion.
I think I'll make a new motion. The authority adopt the proposed FY 2026 operating budget without the communications position and the planner position, but including the financial accounting position.
Second. Discussion on that motion. I would say that I'm going to make the next motion is to make, put Jeff on the finance committee and, but that would fail too. That would fail too.
See, you should really have presented him one of these.
All right, so that's the motion on the table. Any discussion on that motion? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion will pass. Thank you very much. All right, let's go to the next item. The big one. Item 12.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will be quick. We are asking your approval for the call for regional transportation projects for the 6-year program consisting of fiscal years 2026 to 2031. And as Ms. Sink noted previously, we are really picking up fiscal years 30 and 31. Just a brief reminder, eligibility, all projects for Regional Revenue Fund, which is the 70% funds, must be in transaction. They must undergo the HB 599 process, which is already incorporated in transaction. And we do produce the congestion reduction relative to cost score. If you look on page 2 of the memo, you will see the proposed timeline for this 6-year program update. I will not read through it in the interest of time, but if you have any questions, I am here to address.
All right, I will make a motion. We can have discussion inside the motion. I move the approval of the call for regional transportation projects for the FY 2026 through 31 6-year program as presented.
Second.
Seconded by Chair McKay. Discussion on the motion. The only thing I would say is to staff, thank you. I know this is the meat of what we do here, and we pass these motions and you all have spent hours and hours and hours before we get to this motion. We realize that, we appreciate it, and we appreciate all the work you've done to get us here. Anything else? All right. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion will pass unanimously. 13 is the approval of the program recommendations for the FY 2031 congestion mitigation and air quality, the CMAQ and RSTP funds.
Madam Chair, the memo is in your packet, but it is that time of year again where we are seeking an authority recommendation for CMAQ and RSTP funds, the total that we are estimating, because this is out year monies as well, is 92.3 million. As a reminder, you make a recommendation that goes to the Commonwealth Transportation Board for approval. And doing so tonight would get this in alignment to be included in the 6-year improvement program.
Okay. All right, again, I will make a motion. We can have discussion inside the motion. I move the authority recommend to the Commonwealth Transportation Board the proposal projects for the FY 2031 CMAQ and RSTP funds as presented in the attachment. Motion made, second by Mayor Davis Younger. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion will pass unanimously. Wonderful, wonderful. Okay, okay. That is all the action items, yay. And so we're going to go on into the discussion items. I am going to ask Ms. Bernard to come. We should have one of the discussions up here. So Ms. Bernard, is there a General Assembly update we need to do before we get to the letter from the Senate House Transportation?
No, Madam Chair, veto session was last week. There was really nothing as particular appropriate or directed at NVTA and the governor's amendments or vetoes. So it was a non-issue for NVTA.
Wonderful. All right, I will discuss the second item, which is the funding for Nova bicycle pedestrian infrastructure. I received a letter from the chair of the Senate Transportation Committee, Lamont Bagby, and our own Carrie Delaney from the Transportation Committee chair and on the House side. The letter is asking that that MBTA, and it's actually in your package, you can look at it in your package, conducts a review the findings of Virginia Department of Transportation from the December 24th Northern Virginia Bicycle Pedestrian Network Study and make recommendations to the General Assembly to fund the infrastructure identified in the study. The infrastructure they're talking about is what they want to coordinate with VDOT, the members of jurisdiction of MBTA, which is all of us, advocate representing the bicycle, pedestrian transit, smart growth, and multimodal transportation, and talk with any other stakeholders that they believe we should speak to. He would like this by November 1st, 2025, so they can be adequately considered for the General Assembly 2026 session. So just a little background on this. When this was put forward by Senator Surville, he and I did speak about this when I was down to General Assembly, and we spoke to MBTA staff as well. And what I said to him is, one, MBTA is, I think, the right organization to do this. I think we have the staff knowledge to do it. And in fact, in some ways, we appreciate the confidence that they would ask us to do this with. So we have no issues with doing it at all. The issue simply was that right now, November 1st is a very quick deadline to do this in. It's a very, very quick deadline. So I asked for two things. I asked either they push back that deadline, or they help with some money by giving us enough money to help to get a consultant to help us out. Both of those things were denied in the Senate. It did pass the Senate and then went to the House. Delegate Delaney, help me out. Did it pass the Transportation Committee in the House, but then didn't go to the full floor? Is that what happened?
I would have to look back at the LIS tracker to really recall exactly where it got to that point where the letter was proposed as a solution.
Well, the letter wasn't proposed after it didn't pass the
That's
House.
right. That's right. Yes, after.
But I don't know how far it went in the House.
Off the top of my head, I don't remember. I'd have to look it up, but I know that at the point where it was no longer moving forward in the House was the request to write the letter.
So it was laid on the table in the House.
That's right.
So it didn't pass in the House. It did pass in the Senate, didn't pass in the House. So this letter that is a request to us is exactly what the legislation that was put forward and didn't pass is, like literally every single thing, including the timeline. My response is still the same, which is we are happy to try to do this. But the truth is a lot of the people who work with these issues are very involved in DMV moves right now. And so it's hard for people to do all these things at one time. And so my issue was, and actually, it doesn't even really go into effect unless we wanted it to until, I think, July 1st. We have from July to November to do this, and it just was too fast. And so my suggestion is that the letter that we send back, that I send back on MBTA's behalf to Mr. Delaney, Delegate Delaney, and Senator Bagby, copy to Senator Surabel, is that we will be happy to do this and we will get it done as quickly as we can before the General Assembly session begins. But we are not going to make a promise to do it by November 1st because we may not be able to get it done by November 1st. But we will make every effort to get it done before the General Assembly session starts. That's what I would like to do. So thoughts, discussions, input. I know it puts the General Assembly members on the, I'm like, thoughts.
Pleased to receive that.
You'll be pleased to receive that letter. When I got this, I was like, let me just call her. But I thought maybe not. So, but that's what I'd like to do. Only because I mean, the staff is the staff and they can only do so much. And with no money for a contractor or anything, which really was the request. And it was like a dead out no when we asked for the things that we requested. And so I was trying to meet them halfway. And so here we are right now. Any thoughts?
Madam
Yes.
Chair, I think if the overall tone is very positive, we've been created to do this kind of thing. We're more than willing, that's not even the right word. We're anxious to do this work as requested, but just sort of give a polite, I think, as you're recommending that we may need to go beyond the November 1 deadline.
Okay.
But I think any reference to needing funds might backfire because we've got a lot of funds that have been.
Oh, we already been told no on that.
Yeah.
We've already been told no.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
wouldn't.
yeah. No, I wouldn't say that. Yeah, it would just simply be about the timeline. That's all. So, any objection to staff working on that letter? Go back. Okay, they can work on, and then we can bring it back to the next meeting so everyone can see it before it goes out. No, thanks.
Madam Chair, could I note there, because of, even if we try to get it done, or we will get it done by the start of session, we will need help in the form of a consultant. So I just want to put that out there for the next meeting.
Even by, when the session is mid-January?
Second Wednesday of January.
So, okay. Okay. And that's not budgeted right now, but where'd Mr. Longy go?
Mike?
He's trying to
Talk to us about that. There is, I'm assuming, a contingency fund of some type to take out of to
Yes,
have
we
consultants.
have an operating reserve and we have actually done some basic research and found some Fairfax County on-call consulting contracts that we could ride to avoid procurement.
All roads lead back.
The degree I liked you when we walked into this room, yet don't like you anymore. It's just amazing right now, Jeff. Okay, then we will, I think that should be detailed in a letter, though.
Yeah.
We're not asking for funds, but where these funds are coming from, I think should be detailed in the letter.
And to that end, let me just ask this. I know this is a little bit unusual. I mean, I find it unusual. Because usually when you're asking somebody to do something, you expect it to either core to their mission or you help them with it. I guess my question is a reimbursement request for our expenses in order? I mean, I would just think in terms of, I mean, the thing here is I know the General Assembly wants a high quality report. We could hastily pull something together without a consultant, but it's not going to provide what I think the General Assembly is looking for. And there's a cost associated with doing that. This is not a normal activity of NVTA. And so I'm just wondering if in the letter, we say we'd be happy to do it. We're going to do it as quickly as we can. In order to do that, we must bring on a consultant And, we look forward to completing this as quickly and as comprehensively as we can be. And we will submit our costs to the General Assembly for future consideration or something. I just don't want to walk away having done all the work and not get any appreciation for the work or even have any options listed for how the authority might be reimbursed for the work that they did, which is being requested not by us. Still important work to be done, and I don't object to that, but it wouldn't be something otherwise we would be doing. If we weren't being asked to do it.
Madam Chair?
Sure. You want to put the mic, get a mic next to you?
Yeah, I would like to caution us before we go down this road. One, this was legislation that went through the General Assembly and was not approved.
Mhm.
It was not approved as a budget amendment, did not get included in the budget. Opening up the door to allow one individual in the General Assembly to direct NVTA to do whatever scope of work they want with no budget follow-up or not a legislative action taken by the General Assembly gives me pause as a member of the General Assembly. I would ask our body to
Say no.
be careful in what we decide that we're going to agree to do, because if one member is allowed the opportunity to send a letter to ask us to take on a piece of work with no funding and no General Assembly approval, why can't any member of the delegation send a letter and ask for whatever approval they wish that is not approved by the General Assembly, is not included in the budget? And quite often when a piece of legislation does not get passed in the General Assembly, it is the custom that the chair writes a letter to an agency to request them to study an issue. Those are typically not deep dives. So
So you'll be, if I were to paraphrase, what you're saying is this letter asks for more than it is typical to be asked when when legislation doesn't make it out of the General Assembly.
Madam Chair, I would agree with what you were saying. And again, I would
No,
caution.
that was a question.
Yes, I would agree.
That was a question.
That is accurate. And I would just say, again, is it the charge of NVTA to accept whatever request a General Assembly member sends to NVTA?
Well, I would say this. We all know the origin of the request, but the letter came from the Senate Chair, Senate Chair Bagby and Mr. Laney, who was on MBTA. It would be quite frankly uncomfortable for me to say no to a letter that comes from a member of MBTA, because that is who the letter is coming from. It's not coming from a single member. It's coming from the two chairs of the two committees. And I understand all the background and how that works. I understand all that, but the letter comes from the two committee chairs. So, and I also don't know that, I didn't know that usually it's the study, and that's interesting to know. But at the same time, I do think that there is some, I think that we are the right agency to do it, since we talk about multimodal transportation all the time, and this is part of multimodal transportation. I think we're the right agency to do it. I do think it could have been done with more gravitas by not Mr. Laney and Mr. Bagby, but from the originator. It could have been done with more gravitas. I would remind you all again that I did ask for funding and was told by the originator, no. I mean, it wasn't like it was a flat no. So saying no at this time to Mr. Bagby and Mr. Lane, I know this must be an uncomfortable conversation while you're sitting right here. I don't want to talk to you about like you're not here. It's you were, yeah, no, you are, yeah, no. It's a very uncomfortable moment for you, I imagine. But saying no, and I don't know that we need to, if we can do this and we have the ability, and we have the means, I think it's okay to say where the money's coming from and that we are fronting this money. I do think it's okay to do all that. I don't want to just say flatly no. However, this is a decision of the authority.
Madam Chairman, I just want to add, I appreciate what Senator Boysko has just said, because when I read the letter, I had to get an education on this. I can't just send a letter
Mhm.
and direct whoever I want to do something that I couldn't get past at my board. So
Me
that's a
neither.
foreign concept to
Me
me,
neither.
that type of thing can
That's
happen.
county government versus state
Let
government.
me tell you where that would go in my
Yeah,
world.
yeah, no, that'd be not good.
And so, but I appreciate the sensitivity here. I would just suggest that if we do respond to the letter, that we don't not take an advantage to share that, you know, we have concerns with the way this has transpired, but as the Regional Transportation Authority, we take these issues very seriously and we're willing to take this on. However, to do it right, there's a cost associated with that. And I would go so far as to suggest we will be submitting for reimbursement the cost necessary to conduct this study. Obviously, if the General Assembly and the state wants to ignore that request, that's in their bailiwick. But the point that Senator Boysko made that troubles me the most is the slippery slope that we're on, where what is the next thing we're going to be asked to do? And that's where I think we have to submit for reimbursement an invoice of what this cost us, so that if this happens again, you now have grounds to say, no, we still haven't been reimbursed from the last exercise we went through where we did this favor, you know, and I understand his direction to do this. And so I would just think we take advantage of the opportunity to do it, but we also take advantage of the opportunity to explain what it's going to cost and that we are going to be submitting for reimbursement for those costs.
Ms. Delaney.
Madam Chair, I mean, I will just, to expand on Senator Boysko's kind of points about how these letters often transpire. As mentioned, when legislation doesn't proceed from either chamber, it is customary to say, as a courtesy, we will write a letter to fill in the blank authority, asking if they're able to fulfill any of these objectives without this legislative action. I would see that as chair of the committee as, fulfilling that with the expectation that whoever is on the receiving end of that letter is going to have the ability to look at it and make determinations about what, if any, is a reasonable thing to respond to, what, if any, is a reasonable thing to implement, what, if any, is a reasonable thing to say that's not within our scope or our capacity at this time, and respond back. I think just to kind of, I guess, put a spotlight on what the procedure typically is like as bills come out of the committee, recognizing that what we get back is anyone's guess.
Delegate Sewell, Senator Boysko, Senator Delegate Delaney. Well, maybe not Delegate Delaney, because this, again, I want to be really respectful of your kind of a place you're in right now. So Delegate Sewell and Senator Boysko. Is this, you believe that this ask goes further than ask typically do for legislation that does not pass both houses of the chamber, and that that we're making a report, we're presenting a report that gives us a date versus, so you believe it goes further?
There's a fiscal impact to this.
Mhm.
Is that accurate?
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, of course, yeah, that is accurate.
I do. There was a policy decision that was made that the request for the legislation was not moved forward. If there is a fiscal impact next year, and I'm looking at what's happening in the country around priorities that we are going to have to make. For then the Commonwealth to get a bill to ask to be reimbursed for, how much are we talking? $100,000? I don't know how much we're talking about, but that is extraordinarily unusual.
Okay.
I've never seen an agency or an entity come back and say, oh, we did your study that was not included in the budget prior to that. And I don't know if Ms. Baynard.
No,
I was gonna ask Ms. Baynard, did she want to come
recall
to the
anything
table?
like
And
that
I was gonna
happening.
actually ask her to get,
It's
after Delegate Sewell, I was gonna ask Ms. Baynard.
highly unusual.
Does she have any, any comment at all, one way or the other, Delegate Sewell?
I would simply, thank you, I'm just fine. I would simply add that I understand the desire to request reimbursement. That being said, there is no appropriate manner to do so outside of the legislative process. So that would have to be a request of appropriations. So for instance, the Appropriations Committee in the House, the Finance and Appropriations Committee in the Senate, more than likely their membership has no idea that this request has even been made.
Right.
So therefore, going back and requesting reimbursement is going to be, it's going to appear
Like for what?
like it's gonna be a very confusing request is simply the best way I can phrase it.
Yeah.
And I don't think that there will be the perspective to add that to ongoing discussions over the budget because there's no way to do so at this moment in time for this legislative cycle.
It would have to be next year.
It would have to be next year, so any locality could request said reimbursement. MBTA could ask that there be someone who is bringing forward such a request, but again, that is not a standard item
very
that
helpful.
is ever requested
That's very,
of
very helpful.
the Appropriations Committee in the House or the Finance and Appropriations Committee in the Senate. I see that Chair Delaney would like to add.
Yeah, and I think
No,
everything
no,
you said is.
no.
Oh, okay.
Chair Randall.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Delegate Delaney. Messing with you.
Madam Chair, I agree with everything Delegate Sewell said, and I think that, again, we send out letters to agencies requesting things that are sometimes met with, that is not in our capacity, right? And so I think in this case, recognizing that this is something that there is an interest to do, I think considering what is practical, and if there's an element of this that's practical, coming back with that versus saying we are unable to fulfill this without the financial appropriation, that would signal, okay, then we need to put in a bill next session that includes that appropriation in order for this to be done effectively. I think the response to the letter will either be a means to accomplish all or some of the request if it is the interest of the authority.
Okay.
But if the capacity to fulfill any element of the request or to do it correctly would require funds, letting us know that so that would signal to us, okay, that then therefore this can't be done without legislation because the appropriation is required, and then it would have to be a bill for next year.
Okay, that makes sense. Ms. Baynard.
I agree with everything that you've heard. I actually have had an opportunity to talk to executive director of a commission that also has gotten a number of pieces of actual legislation sent to them. And she will be asking her board members at their organizational meeting, what do you want to do within our 2025 work plan? Because they can't do everything that they were requested of. So it is absolutely right that the agency, commission, authority that gets these kind of requests does and is expected to look at their capacity and determine what, well, does it meet, is it in your scope? You all have already had that discussion, and then determine how much of it can you do? And I think for the authority is how much do you think you can do well, because we like putting out a quality product. Staff here has read the report. One of the first things that said in the cover letter is it's as much of a wish list as anything. The projects haven't been completely vetted. And one of the things that the original bill asked is for the authority to sort of vet the projects and set an idea of what prioritization could look like. So it might be that Ms. Bachman and her staff look at it and recommend back to you all what you could do as a quality product through the end of this calendar year. And then that is what is submitted
So
at the time.
that makes sense. In general, this is just me. I don't make requests when when I know I just will be told no, because I think that just makes us look weaker, to be honest. And so I like what you just said, Ms. Boehner. In some ways, I would prefer not doing it at all than doing it, making a request for funds that we know we're never going to get. Because now we've done the work, we're not going to get the money, we know that, we made the request, and now we just look weak. So I would not support doing the work and making a request. that we know is just not gonna happen. So I think what Ms. Manager said makes some sense that, what can we do outside in-house that wouldn't require us to have to hire anyone, although it's still work hours and all those types of things. And send that letter, have that letter drafted and then send that letter back, or just say no. That's really where I'm at, just say no, but I'm not asking for money that I know they're not going to give us. That's just like, that's a bad idea. That you played your whole hand and now that's a bad idea.
Madam Chair, I will respectfully disagree just from the standpoint of, I don't know what you do the next time, the third time.
No,
the
I'm
fourth time
agreeing.
this
I don't think we are
happens. And
disagreeing.
so, I mean, I think we have a reputation of providing a quality product.
Mhm.
And we have a lot of mission-driven responsibilities that we've talked about here tonight that are statutorily required.
Mhm.
And to sidebar those
Mhm.
because something out of nowhere drops in our laps. And I would just say, it's not just NVTA. If you look at this is also coordinating with the member jurisdictions of NVTA. How many member jurisdictions do we have, Monica?
9.
Nine.
And then 5 towns, so I'll say
And
14.
5 towns. And so I can't even sit here today and tell you whether or not my jurisdiction has even
Mhm.
reviewed
Mhm.
this report and is ready to provide
Right,
comments.
right.
But that's a responsibility now to coordinate with all of those jurisdictions that are in this letter. And I am concerned about producing something that isn't of the quality or producing something that's half the story and then is misused
Mhm. Mhm.
for a legislative action later.
Then,
That doesn't
then
tell the
I
complete
seriously
story.
would just as soon write a very respectful no. I'm not kidding. I would just assume write a very respectful
Or an
no.
alternative, that we appreciate the opportunity to do this. Here's what it would take to do this. Would you like us to proceed?
But we're not doing it until we get the money first.
And that may be one of the things, a condition you make in there. And that can be a condition you make in there, but I don't want to walk away from the other things you said,
Yep.
which is it's
But we're not
nice to
doing
be
it until we get the money
respected.
first.
It's nice to be asked to do this. But here's what it would take to
Mhm,
do this, for us to be able to proceed with this and get a response back. I mean, that doesn't sound entirely dissimilar from what other agencies do. I just don't want to put us in a position of producing a report hastily without full coordination. You also run the risk of making some of the other jurisdictions mad because assumptions have to quickly be made about where they are on certain things, and then they're upset because that doesn't adequately reflect where they are. There's just a lot of challenges with this amount of coordination and this hefty a lift in the period of time they want to be able to do the type of quality work that's expected of
And
this
many of, I
organization.
see you, Mr. Many of, what you're saying is literally the point that was made to the original requester of this. I mean, there's not, believe me when I say that this wasn't there was banter back and forth between myself and the original requester on this item. And much of what's being said here was said. I didn't just go, well, let's see how, I didn't. So just know that's not really who I am. Wait just a second, Mr. Griffin has had his, turn your light on.
I was just gonna agree with
What,
Chairman
turn your light
McKay,
on?
in particular Senator Boysko.
Turn your light on.
It's on.
His light's on?
Yeah,
Oh, okay. I can't see
yeah,
that.
so I agree with Chairman McKay and particularly Senator Boysko. I'm a newish member and I'm taking from this conversation that we haven't done this before. And I'm worried about the precedent that we set if we say, hey, write us a letter, even if we devote internal staff resources. And we'll do whatever you ask us to do, because this is a big entity. We have the ability to produce some great product. And I'm worried that we are creating a really bad precedent.
Mhm.
The idea of going back to them and saying, we'd love to be helpful. Here's what it costs for us to accomplish what you want us to do, seems to be both responsive and responsible.
Okay.
And would also dampen down future requests, knowing that we will certainly be helpful, but here's what it's gonna cost you
Yeah.
for us to be helpful.
Yeah. And we will be helpful. We would do a quality project, all that la-di-da, but it's gonna cost us. Did you have your light on?
No, I did not.
Okay, there's somebody else? Did I hear another? Yes, I'm sorry.
Madam Chair, I just want to, again, the process that we have been given statutorily through the code has been that localities come to us with projects that they wish. Perhaps if a member of the General Assembly wanted a project, they should go to their locality and work with their locality to get their locality to make the request to be included in the funding for the next area. Like, I don't recall, and I've been on this board for a while now, many years. I don't recall us picking up projects outside of the scope. And if I'm wrong, then you can tell me that, but
Okay, so I, no, I understand. So, okay, so I need to try to close this conversation and give staff some type of guidance. So the idea of, we will send the letter back to Delegate Delaney. Senator Bagby and CC, Senator Serville, Senator Boysko, Delegate Sewell, because they were CC'd in the letter, so, and CC them, that says, basically, we are kind of, happy to do this. We believe we have the expertise. We are pleased to be asked, all those things. To do this, we will need to have some kind of contractual obligations with the contract someone. The cost of that will be blank. If you would like to, whatever process they use to do that, please inform us, and then let them do what they do and send it. And I got a feeling it's going to be, nothing's going to come back. That's what I've got a feeling, nothing's going to come back. But we don't, say yes, but here's our bill. It's in advance of, any work. We can't start work without having the proper finances given to us in advance. Thoughts, issues with that, Mr. Snyder?
Thanks. So my concern is that that'll be read. We get hundreds of millions of dollars to do road projects and we can't come up with a study on bike ped, really? I mean, so I'm concerned from the other standpoint that it looks like we're not interested in bike ped projects. And so, but I'm very sensitive to what's been said about the precedent here. I think I get that, but I'm concerned about the appearance from the other standpoint. And the fact of the matter is that bike ped projects are very difficult to get funded. Large highway projects seem to be much easier. So I think there's a real issue here of a larger, what is truly a multimodal system. I'd be concerned about a no letter.
Well, would you see it as a no letter? Would you see that as a no letter, what I just described?
Another approach would be to say what we can do, and then just say, if you want more, it'll cost you.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
I'd like to provide an example of.
You're on the letter, so you're going.
Yeah, exactly.
You're CC.
I can provide an example of a letter which has been done in the past in response to a study request. While this did go through the legislative process, just so that everyone is able to wrap their minds around what is a typical outcome or a product that we could consider. For instance, I worked on a piece of legislation. We were unable to establish peace in the valley. And we were able to bring forward a work group of 12 individuals who sat around a table in Richmond for about 4 hours, discussed the issue, the pros and the cons, and then a single individual went back and wrote out a report. I would encourage us. I actually agree with Councilmember Snyder. I feel that we should move forward, come up with what we are able to produce within a reasonable time frame, and just create a work product. And if there is a desire for additional action at a later date, there is a potential for additional legislation to go through the General Assembly and for them to offer additional clarity at a later point in time. But I think coming up with some sort of a product is a good way for everyone to move forward. This is very general phrasing, in my opinion, as far as what is desired. It's simply just asking for recommendations. I think every locality will know what they are able to produce and what they are not able to produce, and assemble it in a single product, and we can move forward.
Okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to take a straw poll vote because we got to move on. So the two options are this. Option A, the letter I just described before, that we are happy to do this. We know what you're asking for. We believe in the importance of bike ped projects, yada, yada, yada. This is what this will cost in advance. That's option A. Option two is much of what Delegate Sewell just said, to come up with some product and establish peace in the valley, as she just described it. So that is the straw poll that is on the table right now. Delegate Delaney, would you like to not take part in this?
I'm going to abstain.
I think that, I can definitely, I can definitely understand why you would do that. Ms. Henderson, would you, where's she? What, there you are. Would you please keep, do a roll call and they can say A or B? They can say A or B in the straw poll vote, and then that is what will carry the day.
Chair Randall,
A.
Chair Snyder,
B.
Chairman McKay,
A.
Chair Jefferson,
B.
Board Member Cunningham,
B.
Mayor Gaskins,
A.
Mayor Davis Younger,
A.
Mayor Mensing,
A.
Mayor Reed,
A.
Senator Boysko,
I'm gonna abstain.
Delegate Sewell,
B.
Mr. Gribbin.
A.
Those are all the voting members.
And it's a straw poll vote, so Fairfax doesn't have. This is the way to vote for a straw poll vote. Yeah, I know how to use Robert's rules of order. So, would you tally that, please?
7 for A and 4 for B.
Okay, we're going to ask the staff to draft that letter, okay? That reflects what A was. Thank you, everyone, for that conversation. That was harder than I expected, but really great. I'm, no joke, really proud of us right now. Good job, everyone. Okay, finance reports. Mr. Snyder, I'm gonna give you the microphone now.
Yeah, so is there much that we really have to talk about other than what we've just gone through tonight? Michael,
I would just recap, we did do an analysis at the finance committee that basically, as I had mentioned, given the worries on revenue that are out there, our sales tax number would have to go down by $10 million. Even with that, because of our working capital reserve, our estimate for 26 would, our estimate for 25 would have to be off by $120 million, which is, 39% of the estimate. So I think while I know there's jurisdiction struggles out there, you're grappling with the tax rates, because the authority as a body and the finance committee in particular over the years has given us instructions to be very protective, to never put you in a position that you're going to have to cancel a project because of revenue. It would take something even larger than what we are seeing for us to be in that position in the future. I just want to give you that peace of mind.
and just let me add on the portfolio report that we are very consistent with the key benchmarks, right? This is an extremely volatile period. I know that there's a lot of interest on how are we doing in this period. I think we have a strategy for a fair amount of stability as well as good earnings. Michael, is there anything else you want to say about that? And I would point to that one slide on the benchmark with other, how we're doing.
We are exceeding our
I think we've already
benchmarks.
seen that, right?
We started exceeding them earlier this fiscal year, and a big part of it is we have taken the positive part of the market when instruments were paying 6%, 5%, and 6%, and we laddered them out in the future. So as you see sharp market fluctuations, You will not see that in the portfolio because we have always had and will maintain a buy and hold philosophy. So now's the time for us to reap the benefit of that, if you will. Our investment portfolio, when you look at the report, you'll see the return started low, then caught up to our benchmarks, then exceeded our benchmarks. Because again, we have that buy and hold philosophy. We've gone out to 3, 4, 5 years. I think the portfolio is going to weather this storm. Even though our revenue estimate, we're going to beat it by 100% this year, and we basically doubled it for next. I still think we are going to hit those numbers.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Longi? Is there any other one of these things that you want to summarize?
I think, given
Summarize the
given
investment.
the hour, I think we can do a recap. I just wanted to make sure that, the board felt comfortable. That we are in a good position, and it's because of the policies that we put in place and the outlook that we put in place. The finance committee has always instructed us to estimate revenues with a slightly positive balance on them. And all the other measures we put in place will guide our revenue and our portfolio, I think, very well through this coming storm. The other thing to remember is when you hear about the Dow Jones, the S&P, and the NASDAQ, we're not there. We are a fixed income portfolio. We are corporate notes, we are treasuries, we are agencies. So the largest fluctuations that you're hearing about in the media do not impact us at all because we're not in those instruments at all.
So the TAC is in your package, the PAC, Mayor Colbert.
Thank you. We had the same presentation on St. Davis. I got to see it twice. It was wonderful. And we had a presentation on BRT. We are not having an April meeting. We are meeting in May. That's about it. It was kind of a short meeting, but good information.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Ms. Backman, your executive officer report, ma'am.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The only thing I would note, and it's actually in correspondence, is a letter from Bill Cutler regarding the May 8th Nova District Spring Hearing Meeting on the 6-year improvement program. It's actually on the same night as the May 8th Authority meeting. The spring meeting starts at 5 p.m. with an open house, and then it's followed by a public hearing. Our meeting starts at 7, so I'm not sure, and we do have several members who will probably be on the dais for the 6-year improvement program meeting. So we will be following quorum and attendance.
Wonderful, thank you.
Asking me to be here.
Every single time. For my chair's comments, I will say that I received from Chair Jefferson's chief of staff a letter presumably coined by Chair Jefferson that said that that says the cancellation of the Route 28 bypass project and the repayment of the funds, and that has been done. So that is good. And with the exception of also saying, I think really authority members, that was a really tough conversation, a really good conversation tonight. I don't know if every governing body could have made it through that discussion. I really do appreciate it. And to our General Assembly members, thank you for the guidance. I know that's not the most comfortable discussion for you all to have, but I really do appreciate it. And Mr. Laney, I was saying. I don't have anything else. Anything else for the good of the body? We are adjourned.
Flawlessly.